This is an amazing picture of a field which has come to mean so much to me over the years. It's modern day Bethlehem, and about 8 years ago the church gave me and Bernice the gift of being able to spend some time on a sabbatical seeing the sights of Israel, seeing the places and how little so many of them had changed. So Bethlehem is still to this day a small place, built into a wilderness kind of cliff sides, square white houses with outhouses or stables made behind them where people still to this day keep animals. And I was looking for lots of fields because I associate Bethlehem with shepherds and sheep. And instead I found a field. And to be honest, not the best field I've ever seen for bringing up animals. And then I began to realise, whilst listening to Christmas carols sung in September in different languages from people all over the world that had come to look at this amazing place, that this was not a field, but it was the field with so much history. And being God's history, it's in a tiny place next to a tiny place, a forgotten place very easily, but a place that we remember so well today because of Jesus' birth in Bethlehem. For me, the story actually starts in the lovely book of Ruth in the Old Testament, which I used to wonder, why is this book here? It is an amazing and very godlike story. It starts with a woman called Ruth, whose book this is, who's not part of the people of Israel. She has no reason to understand or worship the God of Israel, and yet all the way through it, like so many of the characters in the book, she seems to have more understanding of the nature of God and how to behave in relationship to him and his people than so many of the people that have been brought up with God's word do. So often in this book, God is seen not by speaking directly to people, but by people's actions and their reference to him, not just obeying and quoting the laws that God had given them, but also understanding the heart of those laws and even adjusting them at times to be more godly. It's a brilliant book because of that. But Ruth is in another country called Moab. She's with her mother-in-law, Naomi, and tragedy has happened in that Naomi's two sons have both married Moabite women, and then both sons have died. Naomi is already a widow, and so these three women find themselves all alone. And Naomi tries to do the right thing. She says to her two daughters-in-law, go back to your own people and find more husbands for yourself. That's what my sons would have wanted, and it's what God's law is set up to do. What one of the sisters goes off and does exactly that, which was the right thing to do. But Ruth says, no, I will stick with you. I will follow you. I will be where you are, and your God will be my God. There was something about the way that Naomi lived her life under God that meant that her daughter-in-law Ruth said, I understand who God is just by seeing your life, and I want to follow you. So Naomi had roots back in a small town in Israel called Bethlehem. And so the widow and her daughter-in-law, the refugee, go and live as strangers in the land by the field that we see in the picture, which is owned by a lovely and godly man called Boaz, who is single and trying to do the right thing. He understands this lovely detail from the book of Leviticus, that when you farm your land, you're meant to leave a strip around the outside of the field so that the poor, the widow, the stranger in the land can eat and be satisfied, because otherwise they will have no way of eating them, or of supporting themselves. In the New Testament, there's a story of Jesus and his disciples picking corn on the Sabbath. And it's the fact that they were doing it on the Sabbath that they got in trouble for, not the fact that they were picking it from the outside of the field as people who were poor and had nothing to eat. Boaz understands the law so well that when he sees that every single day Naomi and Ruth are coming to pick food, he has a word with his chief farmer, and he says, well, because they're eating every day, leave a strip twice as wide as usual, just to make sure that everybody who is in need is able to eat. So he understands the heart of the law, not just the letter of the law. He understands what God had in mind as somebody who owns a field of food, wanting to make sure that everybody has enough. And the story turns into a love story, and in the end, Boaz and Ruth get married. That means Naomi has a family to come back into, and there is this phrase called a kinsman redeemer. It's what Boaz does for Ruth and her family to, if you like, save them from the situation that they have got into. So it's a love story. God is at the centre of it, but in the character of the people more so than in speaking to people. God doesn't need to send prophets to tell these people what to do, because at each point everybody seems to want the best for everybody else. Lots of love and care is shown, and it finishes with a beautiful wedding and the beginning of a family based around this field. So why is the book there? Well, it's an introduction to an amazing family, because a few generations later, in this same place in Bethlehem, a man called Jesse, who is the great-grandson of this couple, gives birth to a series of children, or at least his wife does. And the 8th one is called David. His story comes next.